And I only picked a few, but I'm relating it to my life, how it helped me get those opportunities, federal government laws, and also how that relates to your life even today. Those same laws, how they actually impact your life and help students here at STC actually get more opportunities in education. And then I end by showing how education, both secondary and higher, does affect wages. Once again, I'm going to relate that to the students and then actually employers at STC. So, okay. So any questions, concerns, comments? All right, okay. And I should also mention that, so when I'm focusing on this, I'm going to show like 3 or 4 minute clips along the way in each section that I'm going through as well. So, yeah. So the reason I'm starting since like Brown versus the Board of Education, that was in like 1954, because that's the case that actually outlawed segregated schools. That's the case that did that. I could have used it. That's the case that did that. So, but also I need to point out that in my state, in Alabama, this gives me an opportunity to do that actually we still experience discrimination, segregation, even though it was not legal to do that, we still experienced it. And so we call that kind of discrimination or segregation de facto because it's still happening, even though it's been outlawed. And so if you ask me, like, well, why are y'all still doing that? Well, you have to remember, I'm in the Southern culture in Alabama, and my state government is resisting the national government. So we have a term that in political science, we call this, probably in history too, we call this massive resistance. They're actually resisting, and they have a couple of ways of doing it. The state government is telling the school districts, don't hurry up to do this. They're pressuring the school district to not do it and fear of losing state funding. And then they're also, in some cases, they're using what they call pupil placement. I got to be a part of that, where they would take certain select students, a few, and send them to school with white kids. Just a few select students to make it look good. So they were doing that. So I got to be a part of that when we first integrated. But essentially, my first 5 years of school, I was segregated, but it was illegal. They were not supposed to do that. So we still had a dual school system. That means the school district had schools for blacks and schools for whites. So, yeah. So basically, how did that impact my life? I'm gonna go right to that. So how did that impact my life? So first of all, I don't know white people. So I had less, I'm gonna use the words less and more. So I had less. What happened there? Okay, so these are the states basically that were the red states. You can see they're the former slave states, right? The Confederate states, there are 17 in all that required the red, they required segregation. So after the Brown case, they still resisted. Yeah. But you can see up north, it's forbidden to do that, as well as in Idaho. The only reason I point that out because that's come back next later on. I went to university. Yeah, that's why I went, right? So it's forbidden to do that. So my experience with de jure segregation, I see I can look at that. I'm gonna do less first. Like I said, I had less interracial relations. I did not know about how white children acted. I did not know, like in a regular day, things they do. So also the buildings that I used to learn in, my schools, of course, I'm in elementary school. I could see, I mean, I wasn't mad about it, but I could see that once I got with the white kids, their buildings were more adequate for learning than mine. The heating, the cooling, all that. I could see that, but I didn't notice it at first. Their learning materials, I could see they were better, they were more updated, they were better kept than mine were. The classes that I had less elective classes, like beyond the core curriculum. I didn't have like a lot of elective classes where I could have more enrichment learning. I didn't get that. I didn't know that until I went to integration. But so these are some of the things I know how segregation impacted me. So I had less education opportunities, and my school had less funding, and some of it was done on purpose. But one of the biggest ones, and I think they teach us this in psychology. One of the things I learned that segregation is different. It touches you in different areas. It's psychological, it's philosophical, it's economical. It affects you that way. It affects you socially, and it's political. So the main one that I'm focusing on right now, out of the other ones, is this. It's psychological. So I had more psychological racial stereotypes as being by being segregated. I, I didn't really realize that at first, but here's how I know. Since I didn't have interracial relations, do you know, can y'all imagine how I thought about white kids? Because they would not let me be around white kids. Okay, let me put it to you like this. We like to play sports in the neighborhood in Alabama. We like to play sports, a lot of sports, football, baseball, basketball. Do you know we thought we were better than them? We actually thought, just putting into sports, that they were not athletic, but that's a stereotype. We thought they were smarter than us. That's a stereotype. That's how we thought about them. So once, and of course, we thought they were all like, they hated us and stuff like that. You know, they were like evil. That's not true. Once you got to be with them, we find out that's not really the case all the time. But psychologically, that's how I felt. Also, in certain situations, I personally, I can admit this. I thought in a lot of situations, they were probably smarter than me. Yes. So the Brown case touched on that psychological part. That's how the justices were able to make it inherently unconstitutional, because they use that psychological effect that it has on people inherently. Because if you're running around here thinking that people are better than you carry that down from generation to generation. You never can overcome that. So it makes you feel inferior, which leads to, it breeds more and more discrimination. And, you know, have you thinking, I can't be this, I can't be that, things like that. So I'm going to show a clip. They call it a doll test. Have y'all ever heard of the doll test? That's what the Supreme Court justices use to show how the psychological effect that separating kids have on each other. And mostly you're learning this from your parents in your community. And they're being taught the same thing, that they're better than you and they're superior. And, you know, you can't play with them. You can't, you know, date them. You know, you can't. So you've been taught that. So let me, and this is after the Brown case. I'm still experiencing this. Remember, I don't even supposed to be experiencing this, but I'm still experiencing it. So here's the clip. I could just click right here, but I've already put it up.
Listen to the Book Notes Plus podcast with Brian Lamb every Tuesday.
And separate was not good. In fact, separate was an injustice. What we're looking at here are the dolls that Drs. Kenneth and Mamie Clark used in their doll studies. The doll tests were a series of studies that Mamie Clark and Kenneth Clark did to try to determine racial awareness in young children, with the implication being that in a segregated society, if children are aware of race and the differences in race and the differences in how different racial groups are treated, that it would impact how they felt about themselves. What they did that actually became very well known and part of the Brown case was they showed young children black and white dolls, and they would ask the children, show me the doll that's nice, give me the doll that's the best, give me the doll that looks like you. And more often than not, the black children showed the doll as the nice doll was the white doll. The doll that was the best was the white doll. When he got to that last question, give me the doll that looks like you, that's when the children would pause and be a bit more confused or looked troubled, as Dr. Clark would say, because they had said in many cases, this is the bad doll, this is the nice doll. And so, remembering that they had said this is the bad doll, they now had to show the doll that looked like them. And it was particularly difficult for them. And some children, some black children, would do, and some chose the white doll that looked like them because they couldn't embrace. After having said this is bad, not nice, they couldn't embrace it.
How often does the court rely on social science in making its decision? Was this an unusual thing that this became part of their thinking?
Mm-hmm. So that's a good question. Justice Brandeis in practice had introduced the reliance on social science into lawyers' practice. And so it was not the first time in Brown versus Board of Education that the court relied on the social science. I think, though, that what made this different was that first, over time, and I'm sure it was true then too, there was some question as to how reliable the doll studies were. It really was sort of a simple kind of experiment, and one could raise questions about the methodology and all of the things that we would think about today in terms of the reliability of social science. So no, it wasn't altogether new, but on the other hand, the extent to which the Brown opinion ends up relying on the doll studies and on the idea that black children feel inferior because of segregation, I think was profound.
So we left the story with the death of the Chief Justice. Now, was it because of the Chief Justice's death that they decided to rehear the case, or was that already going to be reheard?
That is an important question.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Thanks, Jeff. Okay. So yeah, that was the doll test, and it was very important to do that for the historical landmark decision. So I was like, yeah. When I heard that, I was like, yeah, I did experience that. And then I heard about they did the doll test, and they like, yeah. So I thought, hey, wait a minute, it's not too bad. Then I was on point, so I shouldn't be like scared to mention it. So So now here's my ideas about once we got integrated. It was actually in my town. They finally did it in Talladega, Alabama. By the way, that's the home of the world's fastest speedway. That's what put us on the map. Talladega, Alabama. Talladega Nights, all the movies. So we finally did it. By the time I got to the 6th grade, as you can see on the slide up there, now it's like 1970. I started school in 1965. That should, people doing math, they're mathematically inclined. They're like, he figured out his age. But so by 1970, I'm now going into the 6th grade. I'm still in Alabama. Yeah. And so basically now we're integrated. So here's my impact integration. Whatever I experienced, it gotten better as segregation. Now I got more white friends. I actually know how white people act. We play together. Now, I'm not saying, don't think just because we get integrated, like all black kids and all white kids are just gonna start playing together. Me, this is what I'm doing. I'm able to do this. And so if y'all ever seen a movie called, I'll give you an idea of what it did to me. So this movie is like when you go to school, when we integrated, remember we had like our own sports. They had their own sports. So now we go together, you have one team, you're uniting these races. Somebody just lost their job in sports team. You have like all these teachers, they can't all transfer over to that one. So you have things like that are happening. But we have to learn how to work together. At first, it was hard. We hung out in groups, and you could see like black kids hanging out together, white kids. And then if you were like me and you had hung out with some white kids because y'all play together, when you got around your black friends, they might want to beat you up. Because you ain't, so you have that idea. And I'll give you another one. I made friends, so I have more interracial relations. Now I'm doing more and less, but I have to go to their homes. Like your friends, you leave school, you might drop by their house. So I drop by a white kid's house. That's unheard of. But me and a white kid don't see it like that. We're just innocent. But their parents don't want us doing that. I bring him to my neighborhood. My neighborhood does not want me doing that. In fact, talk about the streets. The guys catch me once they leave and they warn me not to do that again. You hear stuff like that, right? Don't do that. So we have to go through all that. It's hard at first. But again, I do have more friends after that point. My learning materials get better. We get new schools built because they put us together. They end up building new schools. So I get better buildings. I start taking classes I never had before, like agribusiness. I know that's just about farming, but I didn't have those kind of classes at first. Computer classes, I never had that. But now I'm getting all these types of classes that I didn't have before because I'm integrated now. So I'm going all the way to the 9th grade. I get these kind of classes. And so I have better learning materials, all that stuff. But I have less psychological racial stereotypes. They kind of like go away. Not totally, but I mean, some things are confirmed that I had before, but they disappear. Like I know more about white people and how they are because I'm around them. But so how do y'all think it was when you first, for me, if I first went into, how do you think you feel? If you first went into a school with just like all white people, you never been around, can you imagine like what's going through your mind or how you feeling at that point? Scared, yeah. Okay. So here's how it worked. When I first went, my mom took me to school. That's how I got there. She actually walked me to the school. And then she left. And that was it. Now I'm on my own. So I had to learn how to deal with it myself. So on that note, I'm going to show you like the first guy that did what when we integrated, I wasn't the first guy. In my town, it was like we made it to like the 6th grade. But there's some guys before me in other towns in Alabama who did it before my school district. So I couldn't find the video when I did it. Well, I could find the video when the first guy in Alabama that did it, and how his parents too, they took him to school, and he had to go through a lot of stuff. So I'm going to show that clip. But I was already talking to over here. And so what happened was once I got through the 9th grade in Talladega, like I said, I had beautiful buildings and everything. Then my mom, she moved me to Chicago, Illinois, and I went there. So I was in high school there, 10th, 11th, 12th grade. The school I went to is called Farragut Academy. I don't know if y'all ever heard of that before. Okay, it's Farragut Academy. It's in this school, there's hardly no white kids. They're all Mexican Americans and Black, mostly Mexican Americans. So I went to school, but I didn't even think anything about that. It wasn't even like, no, it was like, it was segregated in school, even though it was the big city. Cities are segregated too. So in school, you had the Mexican American kids on one side, the Black kids on, and then a small group of whites. It was still segregated in school. In the neighborhoods was segregated. So even though it wasn't required, but the way we lived, they didn't bus us. And the way you live, where you lived, also created segregation. You can be in the hood, you never see anybody else but your own race. In the city. So we had to, like, when we met each other, it was a big adjustment. Like, you're in the same building with these kids, but you're never around them. And then once you're around them and you're like, oh, we got to deal with each other. So now you don't know anything about them. Again, you have these stereotypes. So I want to point that out. So that can happen too. It happened to me. But we got through all of that. And then, so now I need to relate to these laws later that are passing. But then I went off to college. The only reason I got to go to college is because laws were passed. The federal government stepped in, just like they had did in secondary education, stepped in and started spending money and make it so poor people like me could have better schools, better education. They did the same thing for higher education. They had like Pell Grants, student loans. I heard about that. That's how I got to college. If it wasn't for that, I would never went. That's how I got there. So I went up to New Mexico. And I don't know nothing about New Mexico. From Chicago, I went to New Mexico Highlands University in the Rocky Mountains. And the reason I went there is because I wanted to just focus on college. Because I already knew by now, but I already knew by now, if I go somewhere where nobody's like me, no, seriously, all I have to do is study. I can't do nothing but study. And they're not going to even be around me at first because I'm used to that. But later on, they are going to become friendly. By then, I already know what I'm doing. See, they're going to give me time. So I did that. I went to New Mexico, and because I got a student loan, Pell Grant, it's called New Mexico Highlands University. And I stayed there 4 years, never went home, and I graduated with my bachelor's social work. So after that, I decided I want to stay in school, and I want to get a doctorate degree. So I want to go from living in housing, university housing, to faculty housing. That's what I said. And it happened. Then I graduated, went to Idaho State. That's why I told y'all about Idaho State. I got a master's there, a doctorate, and then another bachelor's, so I could have something like I can teach in secondary if I need to. So, but all of that happened because of hard work. They had the opportunities because this is what I say, the federal government helped me pay for school. They gave me work opportunities with, and stuff like that, Pell Grants, student loans. And then I just worked. That's all. School was my life. Studying, that was it. And it happened. But I was never worried about what's going to happen the next day. Was nobody bother me? Like I said, let me study and do my thing. I didn't rush it. Even though, like, I know some of the people, like, when you're in college, I y'all probably experienced this. Like, everybody is not in tune with what you're doing. We talk about this. Was Dr. Allen? He said. Okay, so we have this familiar night. We have to tell the families, right? Like, this, your kid is in college. You need to support them this way. You might not understand what you need that. So, like, my family back home, they be like, when you graduate, what you you wasted all your. No, me and the federal government paying for this. So, so basically they're like, when you gonna, and you don't have a wife or girlfriend, they be like, I'm ready to make some deals. Seriously, they ready to move on and do some other stuff, and you still in college, so you need that support though. So I had that support, and being away like that also lent me support. But you still are going to start relationships, and if they're not supporting you, it could be more difficult too. So I had all that support, and I was able to just get the support to focus. But I still go back to the reason I'm able to do it, all that support and my hard work, but somebody has to pay for this stuff, give you the opportunity to help poor people like myself. And that was those student loans, those Pell Grants, and those financial aid people that works that helped me do that. And those student housing, all those little programs you got, apartments, whatever it is. And that, what you call the place you eat, the cafeteria food, all that stuff. That's what it was at the university. Yep. So, okay, I'm going to show this clip about the guy who's integrated.
WCDX News, honoring Black history with this moment of hidden history.
African Americans have made great contributions to our country for centuries.
More than half a century ago, the historic case of Brown versus the Board of Education declared state laws establishing separate public schools for black and white students to be unconstitutional. Following the decision, there was a lot of resistance in many places, including Alabama and right here in Huntsville. Charity Chambers has that story.
So that they could mix with the crowd And that way, if there was any trouble, they'd be right there among anybody who might start some trouble. One of the things that I'll always remember was being in first grade, and we had the old cafeteria style where you have trays stacked up on the rail. You take your tray down and put it on the rail and you slide it along. And there was a little girl, white girl of course, who wasn't tall enough to get her tray down off the top of the stack. And I got it down for her, and she told me, oh no, my mother told me never to take anything from a But even at 6 years old, I understood that she didn't even know what she was saying to me, so that's a lesson that I've carried with me my whole life.
And a few years later, that was a lesson that certainly came in handy as he attended Butler High School.
We had some race riots there because we had one whole end of the gym, the entire wall was painted with a big Confederate flag. And the band would play Dixie at the pep rallies, and we actually went to the school board and petitioned the school board, and I remember they issued something saying that there would be no more Confederate indicia or regalia on school property, which included Milton Frank Stadium and Goldsmith Schiffman Stadium.
Hereford would later be elected as the student body president of Butler High, a school that was only about 15% black at the time. To this day, the Hereford family is still making an impact on the Tennessee Valley community. In 2016, an elementary school in Huntsville was named after Sonny Hereford's father, who was a civil rights leader.
Like Dad said, back in the day, people used to throw things at him and spit at him, and now they name schools after him, so that, which I think is a statement of how far our society has come.
I'm Charity Chambers for Hidden History.
Now, Dr. Hereford III passed away back in 2016, but not before he got to see the groundbreaking of the school that was named after him. Sonny Hereford IV is now 62 years old and lives in Madison County. For more on this story and other stories celebrating Black History Month, just go to our Rocket City Now app or website.
Hello. The U.S. Space and Rocket
Look like a little bit of reviewing on this, but I want to point out a couple of laws for K through 12 that not only was instrumental in my life in giving me more equal opportunities when I was in elementary and secondary school, but even beyond me. But the reason this started is during the 60s after Brown, there was this civil rights movement and led by Dr. Martin Luther King and all them people in Alabama. So, and then of course it culminated in like 1963 in a place, Washington, D.C., they call the March on Washington, I Have a Dream speech. So at that point, they're asking the federal government to step it up and help with this discrimination that's going on in this country that's like constricting minorities from having opportunities in different facets of life, like education, housing, healthcare, the whole shebang. So President Johnson came up with a plan he called the Great Society Programs. Great Society Program. It was meant to pump federal money into welfare programs to create equal opportunities for minorities to help them overcome discrimination that's a result of poverty, that's a result of discrimination, being poor. So one of those laws under the Great Society Program is called the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. This is when the federal government, for the first time, start funding school districts like mine in Alabama Why would they do that? Because they know we got a poor district, they pull out of poor kids, and they want to help us get better learning materials, more educational programs and opportunities. And they also want to put restrictions on our school districts, funding restrictions. If they don't start treating people better, giving us, minorities more opportunities, they would also like prosecute with the Justice Department, as well as take funds away. So that was the idea behind these laws. So we started seeing more money being pumped into our schools. So that led to, of course, more opportunities. Now, that law has been updated over and over and over throughout like my education career and while I was in school. Now it's made it to, it still affects y'all when y'all are in school. How many of y'all were in school, y'all took a test like the STAR test? Thanks. See, that's what it came to now. Now, when Obama came in, so presidents take the lead on these. They set the tone of education law. So he passed this Every Student Succeeds Act. It was originally on the Bush called No Child Left Behind. He put their stamp on it. And the Democrats came in, they put Every Student Succeed Act. So they still have to test you. They still have to test you in what? Math? What did y'all have a test on? English? Yeah. And so they still test you. But also, this is to get funded. And your school district had to show a certain performance level to get it. Does that make sense? To get it. So it's all in the same spirit of creating these opportunities for especially minority students. They got to show a lot of improvement. The focus is still on minority students, minority districts. They have to show that they're improving. And the school is doing something to help them do higher learning. Because, that's like higher learning leads to higher paying jobs and stuff like that. And you're not left behind. You are able to get those things. So that's the focus nowadays. But it's still in that same spirit. So those are the two laws for K through 12 that I struggled. What am I going to share with you, on how it's changed? And my whole method behind that is like, I'm like relating it to like what I'm saying, how education affected me. And I was thinking about funding all the time. So these things affect funding, and they require the school districts to, in order, not just doing it for the money, but they also have a motive to try to make, especially minority students, more successful and able to compete with other school districts and prepare for college and things like that. Yeah, and to spotlight, the national government is creating not a national curriculum, but they're trying to create more equal opportunities for students. These are mandates that they're putting on states and showing the role of the federal government and how we're thinking about why could we have equal education today. It's more from the federal government laws than the states in that sense. So that's how I think these new laws, recent laws changes have impacted my life, my community, and the United States as well. So in this same sense, I want to
Hello and welcome to Teachings in Education. I am your narrator, Frank Avella. In this presentation, we're going to explore the Every Student Succeeds Act, which was created to ensure that all students receive quality education from public schools. ESSA requires that all students be tested by their states. For example, states must test students once a year in grades 3 through 8 in reading and math. Students must also be tested in reading and math at least once in high school. As for science, students must be tested once in elementary, middle, and high school. ESSA allows for states to set their own academic standards and related coursework of curriculum. Those standards must be, quote, challenging with respect to reading and math and science. All students receiving public education should have equal access to those standards. School accountability was outlined in the No Child Left Behind Act, and ESA continues to hold schools accountable for student achievement. Schools will be evaluated through 5 different measures, with 4 measures being academic indicators. Some ways to measure school success is through graduation rates, English language proficiency, college readiness, academic progress, etc. School innovation is stressed in ESSA. Innovative teaching practices and lesson plans should be used to increase student achievement. The students themselves must be given the opportunity to create and build. UDL, the Universal Design for Learning, is suggested as a way of using many different methods to allow students to learn the same content. Under ESSA, all school districts must make their report cards available to the public. Some of the things you can find in a school report card would be high school graduation rates, where school funding is going and where it is coming from, as well as standardized test scores. Student demographics on achievement will also be present. Bullying prevention is also a focus of the ESSA. Recent tragedy has set forth the need for bullying prevention programs. States have their own laws on how bullying should be handled in schools. Today, there are many anti-bullying coordinators and committees available in the districts. Now, ESSA replaces the No Child Left Behind Act and makes several important changes. However, provisions related to standardized testing remain in place. ESSA looks to decrease the amount of high-stake testing by allowing states to make decisions. It eliminates the annual yearly progress, AYP. And here's just a little bit of more information before we finish up. ESSA provides funding for states to improve the use of assessments on behalf of the benefit of the child. States are required to submit goals and plans for achieving success to the United States Department of Ed. And the Department of Ed is obligated to provide feedback and to approve or deny the state's plans. For more information, grab the Special Education Law PowerPoint found in the description. And I want to say thank you for your time. Please subscribe, like, and share this video. Thank you very much. Hello and welcome to Teachings in Education. Here is the question posed.
Okay, now, higher education. Now I'm going to go to the higher education laws to show how they, the current ones that affected my life, I think the most, changes in education. So as I mentioned in the previous slide, that in 1984, that's when I went to the university, New Mexico Highlands University, as a freshman. Let me point something else out to y'all. Fred Garcia. Yeah. See, when I may have told him this. So when I became a freshman, I was 24 years old. So for like 7 years, I was like from high school, I was working. I did work, just working. And then one day I was like, you know what? The only way that I'm really gonna make money to support a family and to be independent is to go to college. I ain't got nothing else to lose. I don't know anything about college. I've been out of school for 7 years. So I know we got like a lot of students that are called non-traditional students too. Most not, but we do. So I was considered a non-traditional student. So I went off to college, to the university. So once again, like I say, the only way that I was able to do that is because of another Great Society program. It was called the Higher Education Act. It was created the same year they created this Elementary and Secondary School Act, 1965. The federal government started funding colleges and universities as well. They were offering scholarships, grants, loans, that kind of stuff. But it went to the university and you applied on the university. But by the time I got there in 1984, now this stuff was separated out. They had a program called a Pell Grant. I filled out a form that y'all fill out today. What the federal aid, free application for federal student aid. Yeah, free application, FA, federal student aid. What do y'all call that today? Y'all have a short way of saying that. FAF, yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's what they call it. So that was, I love that form. I'm not kidding you. Shoot, I don't know how y'all do it, but see, we had to get it in by January to make sure that we qualified for all the maximum financial aid we can get. Because if you were late, you might not get qualified for as much stuff like work study or scholarship, whatever they're offering, the grants. I lived on campus. So as soon as that application came out, I filled it out. And I walk it right over it, or whatever. I need mail it in, and then when it comes back, I walk it right over there. But I don't expect everybody to be able to do that. But that's what I was doing. So that form, you got to fill out the form to get the Pell Grant. And then they started giving you student loans directly. Like directly. That form also lets them tell you how much student loans you qualify for. All that stuff. You get like an award letter. So that particular law, that particular form, was very important for me. I love that. That's how I got independent. And I was able to go off to the university. Yep. And here's another thing. Y'all know that form is based on poor people. The poorer you are, the more financial aid you qualify for, right? So what do y'all think when I filled out the form? Mine was always 0. So they give me like the maximum. Anything, whatever they can qualify for. But then when I started working, like get summer jobs or stuff like that, work at night at Arby's or something, got to put that in. Because you don't want to not mention that. You can get in trouble. Yeah. You just got to bite it. You just got to bite the bullet and maybe get less. But yeah. So yeah. And just they're going to ask you to turn in like information, right? Like income tax forms and stuff. Y'all know about this stuff, right? Yeah, okay. Yeah. So yeah, just tell the truth about that. And then, but financial aid, that's how we were able to go to college. That's how I did it. Now, here's what I found out. It came up when we started this semester. I was sitting in a meeting and we were all the faculty was there, Fred was there, and the administration was telling us about this program called the Valley Promise. Like, what's that? They're like, look, we're going to make education free for STC students. Like, free? Free. Like, after you get rid of all we're not even talking about student loans for y'all. After you get through with all your Pell Grants and scholarships and you still owe STC money, they have a program. Have you ever heard that program? They have a program. So I thought, you know what, I better throw that in too. Because, hey, since I'm talking about funding, it helps you get these opportunities. Okay, here's the clip. So I'm going to show.
Did you know that one piece of legislation fundamentally transformed the landscape of American higher education? I'm talking about the Higher Education Act of 1965. Initially signed into law by President Lyndon B. Johnson, this act aimed to strengthen the educational resources of our colleges and universities and to provide financial assistance for students in post-secondary and higher education. Fast forward to today, and the impact of the Higher Education Act is profound. It has undergone numerous reauthorizations which have expanded its scope to include increasing aid for students and fostering improved access to higher education. For instance, Title IV of the Higher Education Act covers federal student financial aid programs, which has helped millions of students afford college. But how has the Higher Education Act evolved? Over the years, amendments have been made to adapt to the changing needs of the population. For example, In 1972, the Pell Grant Program was established, providing need-based grants to low-income students, which do not need to be repaid. According to a study in the Journal of Higher Education, these grants have significantly increased college attendance and completion rates. However, the Higher Education Act is not without its critics. Some argue that while it has made education accessible, it has also contributed to rising tuition costs, as colleges raise fees in response to the increased availability of federal money. Yet, the consensus remains that the Higher Education Act has made a crucial contribution to making higher education accessible to a broader segment of the American population. As it stands, the Higher Education Act continues to be a topic of significant discussion among policymakers, educators, and students. Its reauthorization is always in deliberation, reflecting the evolving needs of the education system and its students. Whether you're an educator, a student, or simply an interested observer, the dynamics of the Higher Education Act present a fascinating glimpse into the values we place on education in society.
This is from the STC website.
Well, if we think about the word promise, it's filled with hope, not only in what we offer our community, but the change that we offer for our students and their families. So the Valley Promise is really part of the national movement to ensure that community college is free for all students.
Vamos a prometer a los estudiantes, we're going to promise them that they're going to get their tuition covered when they come to South Texas College. And what we want to do is just make sure that these barriers for our students are eliminated, that there's no excuse of why a student can't receive a higher education.
It's been a game changer, providing opportunities for our students to succeed, because finances for many times has been an obstacle. And their promise will be able to not only to alleviate the financial burden, but most importantly, it's tying in the opportunity for the students to make a pledge and complete a program here, a bachelor's degree at South Texas College.
The student applies for financial aid. We award any aid, any grant monies, any scholarships. And then if the student has any gap left over, we pay off their tuition. This will continue for generations to come, that it will grow and build more until community college in the region is free for all of our students, including high school graduates and adults as well.
The last part now. How does education, both high school and college, impact wages, or does it? So there have been a lot of studies done. So in this study here, you can see it does matter. We call it, basically, there's what we call a difference, a wage difference. So if you see on the slide, from 1970 to 1999, we're comparing college graduates earned about $20K more than high school graduates. Now, college graduates can be defined as associate, bachelor's, master's, doctorate, college graduate. That study, when they say define college graduate, they didn't say it was an associate, they didn't say it was a doctorate or a bachelor's, they just said college graduate. And then down at the bottom, college graduate. So average, $20K more. Then from 2000 to 2020, it went up to $30,000. It's expected to rise even higher. The gap between what a high school graduate can earn and what a person with a college degree can earn, average, is expected to rise. I'm not saying you can't be the richest man in your community and you only have a high school diploma. I'm not saying that. I'm saying on the average wages, because certain jobs require certain education levels, certain high paying jobs. The only way you can get that job is with a, that's probably what I'm saying, with a college degree. There are a lot more higher paying jobs that require college degree than high paying jobs that don't. Now I'm talking about when you go out and work, not if you own your own business, obviously that too. So yes, it does matter. Now, it's expected to go up. So what are some of the jobs? We talked about the test, reading, writing, and math, those type skills that are needed for these high-paying jobs. So what are some of these high-paying jobs? The hard sciences, even the soft science, engineering, math, science, technology, biotech, high tech, those type jobs. So I searched for answers from students because how it relates to me, I already thought that when I went to the college, I was like, I'm staying here and I'm getting my doctorate. I told y'all that already. And the reason, so Dr. Montreal, one of the reasons that when I graduated with my bachelor's, I was in social work. I was like, I'm in social work. I went here so I can get a job and be in social work. When I graduated, after I found out what social work really is, like I was just planning on working in a food stamp office or social security office. But then I found out y'all actually do stuff that deals with like mental patients. You actually deal with like making sure people can live on their own, like taking kids from people who can't, stuff like that, who are not fit to have kids, or determine if people can live on their own, if they're mental enough to do that. Like, I don't want that kind of stress. So I was like, I want to be a professor, because as I was doing that, we had to teach these people life skills too. And I kind of loved that. And so that's when I decided I want to stay in school and get a doctorate. But the work field was out there for a person with a bachelor's. But I was 24 when I went to school. So when I graduated, I was 28. So I was like, man, I got this school stuff down now. I think I can do it. My college, New Mexico Highland University, has taught me, like, I worked hard. They let me do what I want to do, to focus on what I need to do. So now I done got to the point where I think I can get my doctorate. I have gotten confidence, but the more I work, and I was like, if I just go to school one more year here in grad school, I can develop my skills for grad school. Then I can go any place else I want to. And I did that. So, but the main reason I didn't want to go into the work field, not just because I'm like, I didn't think at that time the bachelor's degree, tell you the truth, was going to be enough for me to be competitive. I did. I was like, I'm not going back to Chicago, Alabama with a bachelor's degree. It's not happening. And I don't want to work in social work. I was like, when I get a doctorate, in testament to this, testifying. When I get my doctorate, they can't stop me. That's what I said. That's what I said. When I get my doctorate, getting a job, they cannot stop me. I'm going to go work for a university or a college. I'm not going to even go out into the work field like that. I'm going to stay here like I said, from the dorms to faculty housing. A doctorate, they're not going to, that's what I said. And I did it. It didn't have to happen, but I put in the work. I'm not leaving this place until it happened. It took me 13 years from the time I first went, from 1984 to 1997 to, bachelor's, master's, doctorate. So I wouldn't give up. And I kept working and working. But I knew once I get it, and an old man told me that too at Idaho State, one of my old advisors, he's like, the hardest thing you can do is get through here. Once you get through this, if you get a doctorate, they're all over you. That's the easiest part. Getting a job won't be that hard. And I was like, he's talking my language. That's what I was already thinking. It won't be that difficult. It still may take time, but somebody gonna be enough to hire you. Yeah, seriously. Yeah, so, yeah. So yeah, it happened. So thanks to STC, it happened. Like STC thought we made a perfect match, and then the rest is history. And I've been here like 25 years, and this young man right here, he was in one of my classes, a fabulous. I don't even know. Like I still say today, he's like #1 in his high school, right? He came to STC. Y'all know we like that. It's like, and he's STC. And back in them days, we needed more students like him. We were struggling back then, Fred. we was trying to build our reputation. And so seriously, we were. And so, hey, so now, we have a lot of good students. But yeah, and we made it through. Thanks to people like, yeah, we did. We made it through. And so STC gave me this opportunity to be the best I could be. And then Stark County, #1. No doubt. Yep. Yeah, #1. So yeah, so some students asked students about how do they feel about if they go to college, would they make more money than they would have made in high school? Just students. So here's what they say.
No matter who you are, there are times it can be tough to be yourself when you have severe asthma.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. I'm Danelle Veslick. It's been the old adage of you go to college so you can make a good living, but a new study is showing confidence in education is decreasing, with some leaving college with massive debt and making minimum wage. Imagine just graduating college. You're ready to start your career, tackle your school debt, and build a life for yourself. Well, a new study from HEA Group that analyzes data from the Department of Education says 1 in 4 college grads will make less money than a high school graduate. So I went to the University of Arizona to find out what students are going to college for and what they hope to make. I found that students have mixed emotions when it comes to what they believe they'll get paid after college.
Probably not at first, but eventually, hopefully. I feel like I said, I'll be starting at the bottom, but I feel like making those connections and just building your resume, building your leadership skills will obviously help you in the long run become higher up.
Several students I talked to didn't think they'd make great money at first, but they felt like after working their way up, their college degree would be worth it.
I think at first I would have said that, but I think times are changing, so I don't think, it just kind of depends on what you do.
The U.S. Department of Education's college scorecard showed out of 3,887 institutions, 852 show the majority of students earning below a $15 minimum wage. 455 of them showing a little more income, with students netting between $30,000 and $35,000 a year.
I mean, I don't feel great about that, but I just hope I'm not one of those 4 students. And yeah, you got to pay back student debts and stuff, but I do still think there is a lot of value to a college degree.
I asked students some of the reasons they chose to go to college.
Honestly, I decided to come to college purely for the experience. I know my mom would hate me saying that, but also the academics is so important. It's also taught me so much about just life, not only just in the classroom, but also living with roommates and living by yourself.
Yeah, I'm getting paid free because I'm a veteran, so I'm using my GI Bill, so I'm not paying for it anyways.
I mean, my older brother didn't go to college because he's starting his own business, but for my track, it makes sense to go to college.
Upon talking to these several students, they all told me college was a good option to make higher incomes depending on the degree. For a more in-depth look at these numbers, head to our website, kega9.com.
STC. So if you work at STC, that shows the gap, those years and these years, between high school and college. So, right? Okay. So for those of y'all who work at STC, and you do an adjunct, or some of y'all do Some of y'all do overloads, right? Y'all know what overload is. You know, so you do that. And so the pay is based on education. So when I just thought I might throw it in there, relate to a personal life. Like education has impacted my wages. At STC, I've been 25 years. So every year that I've been here, education was a factor in determining pay, along with years of experience and those things. But education has always been a constant factor. So I went to the employment handbook, and I found the current one that we have. And you can see, starting with an associate to the doctorate, pay per credit hour. Don't worry, students. Pay per credit hour. This is the pay. So you can see education, STC, also believes in education does affect wages. Does impact it. So, all right. So any questions? All right. So I'm going to so that's where I got that from. Now, so yeah, I just copied that right from the handbook. So when we go out to the high schools, and we hire someone that's an adjunct to come in, or someone with a master's degree to teach our classes in political science, and so they either make $850 per credit hour or $950, depending on their education. Yep. Okay, so on this presentation, I did focus on school segregation, school integration, and public education policies, both in higher education and in secondary education, elementary education, since the Brown case, and how those laws have impacted my life over the years and my community. And of course, how that even relates to my students today and their lives as well. It's an ongoing prophecy. So, any questions, concerns, comments, issues? We're open for questions. We're open for questions. You haven't had any? That might be a good thing. That might be good. Yes. Yep. Heather, you got a question? Okay. Yes. Oh, that's a good one. Okay, so here's what happened. So I'm all about trying to maximize my resources. So I never went home. So I found out early on that if you go away to school from like Alabama to New Mexico, the first year I pay out-of-state tuition. The law is if you stay here for 1 year, that means you go to school. This is one way you can do it: fall, spring, and summer, 12 straight months. So now you can show residency. You don't have to take the summer off and stay in an apartment for the summer and then show you've been there all summer. So I went to school all 12 months. Every year I was in school, I went to school all 12 months, regardless. But I went all 12 months. So when the second year came along, my sophomore year, they gave me in-state tuition. And it was from then on. That's how I did that. I did the same thing when I went to Idaho that first year in grad school, out of state. But then after that, 12 straight months, bam, in-state. You got to do that to save. Like you have to. Like I'm getting the same education to add to that they're giving, everybody's getting, but the laws make me pay more. So in the Constitution, like we call that like basically you get like the same privileges and immunities if you're from another state and you go to a different state in education. You're getting the education, but you don't get everything that they get. Like you don't get the same tuition unless you become a resident there. So yeah, good question. Yeah. Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I graduated in 1997. Yeah. Wait. In college? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm saying, you saying once I got my doctorate, did I teach any place else? Not in any other college. But remember, so after I graduated my doctorate in 97, in 99, I received a bachelor's degree. So I had two. So because I wanted to have a bachelor's degree in secondary education. So if for any reason, yes, I can teach at high school. So I actually taught 1 year of high school before I came here. When I came here, I was actually teaching in high school for 1 year. Then I came here. Mm-hmm. Since then, yes. I taught another one before, but I was working on my doctorate. Yes. Yeah, for 3 years. STC gave me credit for that too now. Don't you? Because they actually hired me to be like an adjunct while I'm working on my doctorate, writing the dissertation. They're like, teach. Yeah, so I did. Not like a teaching assistant, like teach this class. So I had to find out how to teach. But they had already trained me about teaching. When I was, so they trusted me. But STC gave me credit for all my teaching when I came here. Yes. Yep. They're like, you got 4 years teaching. So yeah, I know. So we can give you like two years because it's half-time teaching. So part-time. So like half of that. So I was like, thanks. Right. Yeah. Yeah, thanks. Yeah. So yeah. This was like when I got my doctorate, this is the first place I taught in college. And since you mentioned that, when I came along, a lot of fellas, like I say, we were having a hard time. A lot of my people would use this place as a place to get their first job and go, bye-bye, see you later. They would do that. So we had to like figure out a way how to keep people. We got it down pat now. We know how to do it, but we had to figure that out. Me, I wasn't looking for nothing. When I came here, I was like, there was Dr. Macheri, there was a guy, we had a leader. His name was Ruben Science at the time. I went to Mr. Science. I said, hey, look, at the first year, my first semester, I said, they asked me to go to Pecan because see, that's what we used to do. This was a place where they would send the rookie. You had to drive to Stark County. And they still do it, don't they, Fred? And so, see, what happened is when they made me do that, and then they said, you already did it for the team. Thanks, high five. I said, no, change my schedule back. Change it back. They're like, are you okay? You don't supposed to want to do that. I was like, no, change it back. I told my chair, he changed it back. And he did. And so then I went right over to Mr. Science office. We used to be right next to each other in the building over there. I went right next door and said, hey, I told him to change my schedule back. I let him know right away. I was like, because, hey, I feel like I got a home here. That's what I told him. I said, hey, and I said, this works better because they don't have to have a different professor every semester because now we can have that continuity. We can have somebody that's here permanent. That's better for STC, the students, everybody. He's like, you okay? But he agreed with that concept, but nobody else would want, they don't want to keep driving. It's like, no, I'm not trying to move out there. No, because I still need to be, right now. So I need to be around, because I'm married and I have wife. She works in McAllen at the library. Oh yeah, like a lot. So basically, I'm not trying to put her through that. So I'm gonna drive every day. I'm gonna do that, and I keep doing it. And people are like, you don't even get no mileage. I don't get mileage. This is my home site. I just do it. I love doing it. Like I told Mr. Science back then, in my chair, I started here. I got a good reputation with a good rapport with the students. You're a rookie, things can get better. But I'm not trying to start over by going to McAllen. I'm not trying to. This is where it started. So I'm like, I'm staying. And it just kept growing and growing. Plus, see, I know Fred knows this too. You get to drive. People don't understand that. You do. You get to drive and be alone, the downtime. And plus, like Dr. Montreal, he knows this. They let us just teach and be the best we can be. We don't even have to worry about a lot of things. We can just focus on what we're doing. We can. That's what we get to do. We get watched, we get tested and all that. We still a part of STC's team. We still a part of it, but we tend to be way out in Stark County by ourselves. We do, but we still, we're a vital part of this team. Yep. So, right? Right. So basically, yeah. So, yeah. Right. So, yeah, thanks. Yeah. So basically, so that's what I think that it has done for me. I think I'm better. I'm better for that. I do think that. Yep. So any other questions? No concern? Yeah. Oh, see down there, you'd ask me a good question. You do okay, wait a minute. Let me answer this. Seriously. Fred, what do you call me? And what else do you be calling me sometimes? Like a working what? A teaching what? Machine or something. Hey, look, but da. See, when I was doing this presentation, I think I already laid the groundwork. I'm the hardest working person you're gonna know. I'm seriously. I'm the hardest working from a kid coming up. I will outwork you. Like I might think you're smarter than me, but I'm working. See, it's motivating me. I'm working. I might think you play sports better than me, but I'm working on what I do. I know my skills, what I do. Like teaching, I got this thing that I know what I'm doing, but I work hard. When I come out here, it looks easy, but you don't know how much work I put in to build confidence. Remember, I'm still like young Black guy living in Alabama, minority, who I put in the work. So that's what I'm saying. So I don't have burnout. I don't even think burnout. See, when you ask me that question, I'm looking at you like, seriously, I'm looking at you like this. People got burnout. See, I had to be very careful because I already know how I am. And I already know some people don't like to work that hard. And they talk about burnout. I'm looking at, see, if I be truthful to you, I'm like, burnout, please. Please. Seriously, I say it like this, burnout, please. That's why I do it. And I'd be like, that might be too much street for him. But seriously, that's how I feel about that. That's how I feel. This is easy stuff. Working in these fields all day, like I used to do in Alabama and all that, now you can talk about use burnout for an excuse so you don't have to work. But this stuff, man, no. So no, I don't even, I just work. You have to try to stop me from working. You have to come and get me. It's not a big deal. So here's another way to answer that. When my students are not working, like I can't expect my students or my colleagues to work like I work. So sometimes you work hard, you have to try to put everybody else on that. I don't even go there. You have your freedoms, but I know how I work. So that's how I see that. I don't have burnout. And I was thinking about, when you asked me that, I was thinking about an athlete to put in. Here's who I was thinking about. You might know now. I was thinking about a guy named Michael Jordan. You see, he had that complex, like he didn't make the team. And so he didn't make the team in his high school years. So what happened was he knew he had to do something. So he worked hard, real hard. And he never stopped, even when he reached the top. Does that make sense? Even after he won all them championships, people like, you good, you can. I'm not slowing down. That's his work ethic. He kept working all the time, never slacked up. Never. I'm never slacking. I'm never slacking. That's me. I'm not going to quit working hard. No matter if you tell me, man, you got the good. I'm not quitting. I'm working hard. I'm healthy. I'm good to go. All that stuff, Yeah, that's how I handle that. Burnout is my friend. See? That's where it is. That's my friend. Yeah. Ooh, I like these questions. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks.
I like to start by saying that. Yeah. I mean, I find it to be very motivating. I mean, as soon as you said, like really taking in the concept of where you started all the way to this point, it truly is something that inspires. Yeah. I mean, and I've been thinking since this is my first project. And what you've done this entire time, it's like it's kind of funny to say.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But that being said, I found my grounding. I'd like to ask you, what advice do you have
to get through college? Or just okay. So my advice is simple. I'm old school. No matter, so I'm gonna have to answer this way. No matter what it is you're trying to accomplish in life, no matter what it is, I'm talking about being a husband, a boyfriend, from a guy's standpoint, a friend, driving your car, just buying groceries, being a good neighbor, going to be a good student, a good worker in the places you work for, a good boss, whatever it is you're trying to do. Just try to focus on doing the right thing first. Think about how would you want people to treat you if you have to use that as a guideline. That's first of all. Treat people, think love. I mean, if you have to do that, I don't have to worry about that but anyway, seriously, just focus on doing the right thing. Keep an innocent, open mind. Stress, leave it alone. Negative attitude, leave that alone. That's what I say. There's for the young generation, let all that stuff go. There's no place for it. Life is simple. Just focus on what you need to do. Stay focused. Keep your mind occupied. I'll say a mind is a terrible thing to waste. Like when negative thoughts come in and all that stuff, deal with it. That's what I'm saying. I mean, those things happen. That's normal. That's just normal existence. Well, I'm saying, so just like, and I really don't want to, but I'm just thinking these things that you like suicidal thoughts, all that kind of stuff. Like I can't make it. They will come up, but you know what makes them go away? Hard work, focusing on what you need to do, just being truthful to yourself. Like there's always people who doubt you. So don't worry about what people think. Do your thing. And everything will fall into place. But you have to be focused to do that. You got to have support too to be able to do that. But just stay focused. Yeah. You can't always get what you want, but that's what I tell these young folks. Like, stay focused. If you're in college and all your teachers are not giving you their whatever you think that you should have, that's them. If they're not treating you right, that's on them. You don't have no control over that. So don't worry about that. If you're doing right, you'll overcome all that. So don't I want to retaliate. No, don't get yourself in trouble now. I mean, leave all that stuff alone. I mean, that's easier said than done. But for me, it's pretty easy. It's pretty easy for me. Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, and treat all your relationships like that. That's what I say. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Mhm. To better understand, like when you're learning in college, let me try to get this together. When you're learning in college, and so how can you like get, get through that and understand what you're doing, something like that. Uh, Use your thinking. Some people call it critical thinking and your memorization. Here's what I say. Oh, I got it. Okay, I can try to put something together. So I think this, from my experiences, there's like 6 levels of learning. Psychology people, teaching people. One starts with the basic knowledge. Before you start doing critical thinking, that's the 3 top layers. There's these 3 lower levels. I'm talking about a Bloom taxonomy type stuff. So at the bottom is just pure memorization. We all do that. Memorization without Alzheimer's and dementia. Memorization, that's the basic. So if you say, like they tell you, define what government is, you can memorize that. You don't even have to know nothing about it. You just memorize it. So when we're learning all these things that are new, because everything is new, I went through this. And then you have to start, if you keep learning and you're trying to do something, you keep bringing all that stuff into your mind, and that's what your focus is, that stuff is going to become a part of you. It's going to become a part of you, your life, your thoughts, your activity. So now you're going to be thinking and dreaming about that. It's going to be like, why am I learning this stuff? Then you're going to start seeing interactions between relationships between the stuff you're learning in a different discipline. It's going to come. We don't expect it to happen at first. It's going to happen. So if you're playing that role, if you're doing that, your systems around you, they're helping you do that too. They're evolving like that too. At one point, they're going to expect you to not just memorize, but be able to put all that you're learning together and use critical thinking. The higher you go up, the more you have to take control of your knowledge and create new knowledge. And since you mentioned that, me and my students, see, that's the problem with also when you've been working hard that you could have with students. Like memorization, you can't stay there, bro. You got to get past that. We just can't, you can't. So, because, you know, we're trying to grow economically and all that stuff. So you have to move from being able to like memorize and then putting that together and interpret it and be able to comprehend it and then show how y'all got, like when you have like your imaginary friends and stuff, you got to like start playing stuff out, like apply it to your life, like make it work. Like if you're saying it don't even apply to me, well, you're not making yourself see how you can use that, how that knowledge works for you. You know, like when you're studying for a test, here's how I'll say you study for a test if I'm getting to test. Write it. See, can you write it out? If you can't write it out, it's not up here. You don't understand. I'm talking about actually write it out. Test yourself. Like write it out. Like in Fred, he asked you, what's the causes of the Civil War? So you're studying. I'm not talking about flashcards. Like, okay, I'm talking about sit down, get yourself a piece of paper, write out the causes of the Civil War. If you can't do that, you can't say it. If you can't, because essay, if you can't say it, you don't know it. It's not up there. You're going to go in there talking about, I'm scared. I can't remember. It was never there. You didn't practice that. That goes back to when I say working hard. I'm going to outwork you. So when I get there, man, I already wrote like 10 pages on this stuff. And you didn't even give me a study guide, but I know what, you know, the main things that you're talking about. Because I've been paying attention. And I've been checking out the textbook, like this textbook, by the way, to help you with that. These textbooks that y'all got today, they're not like the ones I had. They tell you what the learning objectives are. That's your study guide right there. They tell you in this chapter, you're going to learn about the causes of the Civil War. Stop. Write that out. Causes of the Civil War. When you're reading, answer that. That's the main thing that they're trying to tell you. Answer that. Yes, it's a lot of work, but that's what it's about. Answer that. And then refine it. Go back over it. Put it in your own words because you don't understand that language that they're using at first. And then you start writing it in your own words, you can see, I understand this. I can see. I'm putting my own imagination on it. Then you'll feel free to get looser and looser with that. That's how you do it. That's what I say, like, take advantage of your own education. Check out the learning objectives in your textbook, rewrite your books, focus on that, and then you get yourself confidence that you're studying the right thing, you're learning the right thing. Then rely on your teachers. When they come to class, you already did some work. Rely on them to help you understand what it is that you've been writing and stuff like that and reading. But you got to do that first, right? You don't go to class like and don't read. You can't help the teacher. Teacher can't help you. Like, no, don't do that. Like, already be ready. That's why I say the focus. And then like a lot of things just happen for you. They just start coming your way. Like all the other students will see that you're working hard too on campus or wherever you're at. And the word gets out. I mean, things just start because you're trying, things just fall into place if you believe in that kind of stuff, you know. They come to you, things just happen. It comes to you. Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Okay, good question. So I told STC, by the way, okay, here's what I told STC. Really, when I first started, I said, look, after 10 years, I want to like do something more than just teaching, like get into more, do other things. Then I also said, like, I'm not thinking about retirement until I'm here like at least 30 years. That's what I told him, like 30 years, at least 30 years. I'm not even thinking about it. So if I look at that, what I told them at the beginning, like, so I got like 25 years now. That's like 5 more years. It'll be 30 years. So I'm not going to even think about it until 5 more years. That's what I told them. So on that note, I think that's where I'm headed. If that's to be like the minimum. And this is not about cash or anything, because even if I retire right now, I'm good. I'm good. I'm super good. But it's not about that. It's about, this is what I like to do. So basically 5 more years, then yeah, we can think about it. Think about retiring or taking a chair job or something like that, where you just sit back and make out schedules. Yeah, that's what. Yeah, you know, chair of the department. Just say Stark County. Bye. I'm going over to and be the chair and make schedules out. That's the only other thing that I could say if I wasn't teaching. Once you like get that advanced age and years, you'd be like, I don't even want to teach no more that much. That's the only thing. And I still want to work at STC. You become like an administrator or something, or a chair. You say, I'm taking this job. No, I'm throwing my seniority around or something, you know, something like that. Yeah, that's about it. But that's a good question. So no, I don't plan on, no, man, I'm still learning and stuff too. Yeah, yep. So then I know, so the doors open when you came. So you like a young teacher came in, but for political science in Stark County, I'm like Michael Jordan. I'm like, wait, I ain't quitting for the young guy to come in yet. no, I ain't doing that. So no, I know that opens the door for younger people too, right? But hey, not yet. It ain't happening yet. No, we ain't bringing no rookies in yet. Yep. Not over here, but in Pecan, yeah. So any other questions? Yep. So no, so I appreciate y'all coming out, and I like all the professors that came out. I'm glad y'all came out. I enjoyed it. When I first got the opportunity, I'm gonna tell you, I was kind of like, I don't know how this is gonna go. I was kind of like, I knew I had put it together, and I know it's not gonna go exactly how I put it together, because when you start doing it, you have your framework, but then it gets into other things. That's why you prepare those so you can go and do it. And I was like, whoa, my colleagues are here. They're listening to me. And Heather, I even thought about her. She's here. See my imagination. And I'm like, these people are experts. So I ain't trying to mess up in front of them. That's what I was saying. I'm not trying to mess up in front. And then she's recording it too. And people are, and I got my department people, and they be like, we saw that. Yeah. So I wasn't trying to, I'm not trying to like mess up. So I was like, kind of nervous at first. They said, yeah, but I already knew I had prepared. I knew I had a plan. But so I wasn't kind of nervous because I didn't know what I was going to do. I was just nervous because it was the event about to happen. That's it. And like on that note, when she asked me as a student, every time I took a test, I was nervous, not because I wasn't prepared, because it's a test. That's it. I don't have test anxiety because I'm not prepared. It's because it's a test. That's all. But as soon as I sit down and start right, I'm just going to continue if it's that kind. And then, it's like, you got to take my pen. Like, it's time to go. Okay, but I'm through. I just got through too. As soon as you put me through. So basically, I was kind of nervous, but not because, I wasn't prepared. Because hey, it's time to do it. Yeah. Yeah. I do that in class too. I come to class always prepared. But when I come to class, it'd be like, oh, I got to do a good job in class too. I can't let these students down. And they ask me. And so I go back home and think about what I've done. I don't know if Fred does that or not. I actually think about what we went on in class. Like if Lewis said something in class, I actually think about that later on. He doesn't know it. I be thinking about that stuff. Like what we did in class. Like everybody asked me questions here today. I'm going to think about that later on. Yep, no doubt. I want to think about that. So it's a series of tests. Yes, life is. Yep. So, yep. So any questions over here? Sorry. Yeah. And here's another one. I'll tell y'all this. So yeah, I'm going to bring you up. So some of my colleagues, their kids, you mentioned that, their kids have been in my class. So that's another experience that teachers go through. If you might have your colleagues, kids, like in high school, you can see that then, right? In your class, even in college. That's also, you have to think about that. Maybe I shouldn't have told them, but you have to think about that. So all those things are like, you learn the experience. And so you already know you prepared, but you still have to think about that. Yeah, at first you might get nervous doing that. And then you're like, I got this, something like that. Those thoughts come in, but if you're prepared, you can handle all of that stuff. Like your boss may be sitting back there. But if you're, but you can handle that. So, yeah. So, yeah. Yeah. So, any questions? All right. So, all right. Okay. Thank y'all. Yeah. Yeah. Right.